Hi, I'm Lord Mike, and this is the third part of a film I made back in 1998 with the notorious train robber Ronnie Biggs. Parts 1 and Part 2, which you will see in the links below, are more about preparing for the robbery, how he felt during the robbery, his escape from prison, his life on the run, that type of thing. But this one, the third part, is more of a light-hearted side of Ronnie. We're hanging out in Rio. We're seeing the tourist attractions, we're meeting people. Even Ron tries to be a pop star again, and you see him trying to record a new song. He telephones his wife on their anniversary, his wife in Australia, that is, who hasn't seen for 30 years since he's been on the run. We go to the favelas to see the Samba Club preparing an actual model of the Great Train used in the Great Train Robbery to celebrate the Great Train Robbery. But we get in some trouble there, which you will see, and much more interesting stuff. So I hope that you enjoy it and you look through it, because there are some fascinating insights into the life of Ronnie Biggs in Rio. Thank you very much.
Foi. Você vai usar isso aqui lá dentro?
Vou tomar então.
I would like to introduce you to my lovely maid, Rosa.
Saca tá com medo de ser
Love of my
jogado.
life, or one of them anyway. She's a smashing lady when she's not fooling around and playing with
Aqui,
Liz,
ó.
Liz. Let's butter. Stop. Rosa, stop wasting water. And go in there. I want you to clean the kitchen now, please. Okay. Come on. Come up. Butter. Go.
Pergunta pra ele se pode dar-te banho agora.
Liz. Hey, vem cá, Blitz. Rosa, logo mais eu vou dar um banho nele.
Hã?
Logo mais eu vou dar um banho em Blitz.
Não, mas eu vou ficar com essa borracha.
Well, he gets like a little bits of dirt in his ears sometimes, and it's, you know, to avoid any sort of further infection, I give him a clean out every now and then. I'm going to bathe him today. I'm going to give him a bath, and I always clean his ears before I do that. But I think he just likes the fuss.
Why did you choose this particular breed?
Well, I didn't even, when we had the first one, I didn't even know what a Rottweiler was, to be quite honest. And someone told me it was a big dog and a good guard dog. This is when Mike was growing up, and I sort of wanted something that was going to take care of the house. So we got the first Rottweiler, and I liked their disposition. The other one we had was also a lovely dog, but this one's even quieter and easier to manage than the other one was. Okay, 10 minutes. He's very good. Nice. Does that feel good? Hey, nice and clean.
Is the dog bilingual then, Ronnie?
Yeah, English and Portuguese. Just like his granddad. Hi, boy. Hi. Well, I've been called over here this afternoon by my dear friend Dadu Villalobos. He's a very, very fine, talented musician, and he was part of a group in his country. Their lead singer died. I'm not saying that I'm here because I'm replacing their singer. That's something I could never do. But I did get involved with Dadu and other producers in his company, and we put together these two pieces of music, Run to Rio and Police and Thieves. And we're making sort of some final corrections on the original track. And this is why I'm here now. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to complete this thing, because there is a lot of interest in it in England, and hopefully it will be sort of appearing in the shops before long.
Okay.
I wish I was a pop star. I wouldn't be scratching around for a living, that's for sure. Police and thieves in the street, oh yeah. Police and thieves in the street, oh yeah. Police and thieves in the street, oh yeah. Eu gosto muito da capa.
É, mas pode fazer uma parecida. Os copyrights aí da sua.
From Genesis to Revelations.
Só que tem muito direito pra pagar aqui. Assim.
Deixa eu ver, por dentro.
Ah, é, dentro tem.
Ok.
É assim.
Ah, agora sim.
Tem a letra aqui atrás e as letras. Crédito.
Ah, you want to see these letters, you know. It's all Bob's stuff is here. What I say. Please, maravilhoso mesmo.
Muito bom.
Are you pleased with how it's turned out, Ron?
I am indeed. Yeah, I think it's good. I think it's got potential. You know, I just hope that the people who hear it are going to sort of see that potential and enjoy it. I think it's very. The word in Portuguese is dançante, you know, that you can dance to it. And I think that is the essential, that was what we were striving for, to get something that kids could dance to. So, let's hope they all enjoy themselves dancing to it. Sitting in the seats, watching the pics of the girls from Ipanema. Compared to that, my life looks flat, lamer, samer, tamer. Wanna change my face, arrange my face, but civilization lingers. Wanna trade my ways, cause the precious days are running through my fingers. My life is a mess of getting straight. I'm only joking, no, the meat is generally good in Brazil, very tender. And the rump is good, the sausages are very, very good. And well, of course there's always chicken, but the chicken doesn't look so good today. Ok. Então, sou isso, obrigado.
Deixa de 300 gramas, tá?
Muito obrigado. What I'm buying here is some yogurt, because I'm on a sort of semi-diet. I bought the meat. I bought, this is obviously orange juice. And I normally buy orange juice and yogurt and meat in this particular supermarket. Some vegetables I buy here. But I try to have at least one yogurt each day for health reasons.
Ele já é defumado
No, esse quanto
e
é?
fatiado. Tá R$4,90.
Okay. Smoked salmon. About £3. Not bad.
Tem o bacalhau sem sal, fresco.
Não, isso é coisa que a gente não usa.
Não usa, né?
Não, obrigado. Ok, valeu.
Nada.
Vai levar na mão? Eu vou aproveitar. Ah, não.
Leva na mão, bota aqui, bota aqui.
Na hora que chegar, faz uma estalada. A nova estalada.
Estalada,
Valeu.
beleza. Obrigado,
Valeu,
tchau.
brother. Obrigado, hein? Tchau.
Tchau, obrigado.
Okay, well, I love you, and I think of you, and I miss you. And all right, I'll do that. Terrific.
Abração, meu menino.
Okay, sweetheart. Lots of love, Sham. God bless. Take care of yourself. Ciao, my love. Bye bye. That's my darling Sharmy. My little Sharmy from Melbourne. It was a very, very special call from a very, very special person. My dearly beloved Charmian. She's a super, super lady, and you probably know as well as I do that when you love somebody, you never ever stop. That's for sure. Not me anyway. She's my old lady, and it's the same as it was back in 1960 as it is today. She's still a very, very fine person, and she has the first place in my heart. I mean that. So here's to her on this very, very special day. Here's looking at you, Sean. Love you. I think the scariest moment I ever had was when I was a child in Cornwall. And there was like a metal construction, and it was like a tower for a metal cable that went right across this quarry. And it was held down, the little cable car that went across the quarry, it was held down with a bunch of concrete blocks, and breeze blocks and things like that, and it's like a counterweight. And we got up there, kids, and got into this little car, and the kids down below started throwing these things out, and then the little car started inching away from the tower, and we were all terrified. And I can remember that as clearly as it happened yesterday, when that little car started, because it was one massive deep hole, you know. And I thought, well, you know, I really believed that we were going to sort of get out there, and maybe the line was going to break, or maybe we'd never be able to get in. But it really was a terrifying moment, and I think that was the worst, scariest moment I did ever have.
What about in your adult life?
In my adult life, well, once again, there have been sort of so many. I can't remember when I've been actually sort of afraid like I was on that particular occasion as a kid. I've never sort of, I mean, I've had some scrapes and I've had some sort of scares to do with being on the run, you know, going from one place to another, like crossing frontiers, things like that. They've been sort of heart-in-the-mouth moments.
So that's more of a worrying twitch than a fear for the life.
Yeah, well, I don't think I've ever experienced a fear for my life other than I did as a child. I can't remember an occasion when I was really terrified to that extent.
What about when you were in the sack after you'd been kidnapped?
No, I was only angry then. I wasn't terrified at all, but I really was very, very, you know, ready to kill, shall we say. I've never ever felt a desire to kill anybody in my life, but when I was in there, I was sort of literally planning moves and how I could sort of get even with the guy Miller who kidnapped me, and I'm sure at that time I would have killed him without compunction.
Do you think that's because you've had such a charmed life that you thought, well, I might be in a tricky situation now, but there's always a way out?
Oh, I didn't think I was going to die, and even when on that kidnap event, I came close to going a couple of times, because when I was in the sack, and they put me in the back of a taxi when we reached Manaus in the plane, they got me in the back of this taxi, and somebody dumped some kind of a bag or kit bag, duffel bag, I don't know, something heavy, and dumped it right on my face, right? And of course it choked off. I was already gagged, so it just cut off whatever air I was getting in. And I started to really struggle because I felt, you know, I was going to fall unconscious. And then somebody sort of, you know, I was really struggling like mad to get some air. And then somebody sort of took the bag off, and I was okay. And then when we were on the high seas on the way to Barbados, the boat almost sank. It came very, very close to sinking, but I was delighted. I was thinking to myself, well, this is great. You know, there's 5 of them and 1 of me, and we're going to go down to the bottom of the sea. Great, that's wonderful. At least I'll take 5 of them with me. So I wasn't, you know, I was facing death, but it didn't have any terror for me. I was perfectly happy to sort of go down with those guys.
Because you've been through so much, and there's always, as it were, another bridge to cross, another document to get signed, and so on and so forth. This most recent event where it looks like the documents will be signed. How did you feel leading up to that, and how do you feel now with regard to this final settlement?
Okay, well, I was involved with a TV production a year or so ago, and it was for Portugal, and the Portuguese reporter, he got an interview with the Minister of Foreign Affairs in his country. And it was then that, he asked the minister what my position was, and the minister said that I could rest assured that within the Brazilian law, my crime had prescribed, or the length of time had prescribed, and I was there was no way that they could or would put me out of this country. So I have known about it for quite a long time, but leading up to that particular moment when there was going to be the final decision, there was a moment of, I think to use your word, twitters. There was a little bit of twittering going on there, and just in case anything went wrong, because at the last minute they introduced what was known as the Biggs clause, and I spoke to a prominent lawyer about this, and he said, well, I've never heard of it, you know. He said, but if a clause has been introduced, it will have to be given consideration, you know, against you. We will have to investigate this clause, or it will have to be investigated. But it didn't come to anything, and then when I did get the final word that I was home and hosed, if you like, because there was a moment of extreme joy to know that I really was finally free, and there was like a tremendous overpowering relief that I felt to think that I really could now sort of settle down, be allowed to stay here forever, and, you know, just continue the rest of my life in peace and harmony.
When you've been approaching all these situations, have you worked hard to solve the problem, or have you always left it in the lap of the gods?
I've always left it in the lap of the gods. Yes, I've always been sort of slow to make a move, because I've always thought that it will work out in my favour, and very, very frequently it does.
And having accepted that, do you also look on it philosophically? Well, if I lose, I lose. If I win, I win, and I'll cope with it accordingly. Or what goes through your mind in that?
Well, yeah, because when there was a suggestion about me going back, and I'd have like a heart-to-heart conversation with Mike, and preparing him for what would be the worst situation. I said, but in any event, if I do go back, it's not the end of my life. It's not the end of your life. We're still family, and things will work out. Because I've always seen and always sort of accepted that things that appear to be going against me frequently turn out into turn to my favour. Even getting involved in a train robbery, in some way you could say that it was something that finally turned out in my favour, because I've said before now that I would rather have led the life that I have led during these last 30 odd years than the life that I might have led sort of as a humble carpenter in England, working on building sites and things. On the other hand, once again, it might have turned out better had I not got involved in the train robbery. Who knows what might have happened with me working as a carpenter in England? It might have turned out as just as much as a satisfactory kind of a life as the life I've led.
I saw a quote in a newspaper from your wife, Charmian, and she said, with Ronnie, he was a great carpenter and a useless thief because he always got caught.
Well, there's much truth in that. Yeah, that virtually sums it up. I'm a lousy businessman, a lousy thief, but I was a good carpenter, and still am for that matter.
Why did Raymonda go off to Paris a second time?
Well, when the first time round, she sort of met French high society with the help of Fernand Legros, who was going to be the godfather. And I suppose it turned her head, and she thought that she'd been sort of told by people over there that she was artistic and had artistic ability, and there was chances for her there, and she really believed that was going to be like the chance for her to develop a career. And when she went the second time, she said, look, I'll be back within 6 months. But I think she was away the second time. She came back about 2.5 years later.
And how old was Michael at this time?
When she went the second time, he was a year old. So he was 3.5, and it was a Sex Pistols time when she came back in about 1978.
But how can you leave a 1-year-old child if you're a mum?
Well, she'd done that twice because she had a child in the north of Brazil with a doctor, and she'd come to Rio and left her son with the father in Maranhão in the north of Brazil. I don't know, maybe it's a different sort of mentality that she has, but I was perfectly happy sort of bringing Mike up on my own. He was easy to handle, and he was very young, and I wasn't very well off at the time. In fact, there were some very difficult moments, but I sort of did all the washing and did the ironing and did the cooking and things like that. But it was like it was a rural district I was living in, sort of way down in the sticks. But it was a nice kind of existence. We were very close to the beach, and every morning I'd take Mike to the beach and let him play and scrub around in the sand and the mud. It was a mud beach. But I enjoyed those early days with Mike, and that's when I developed my affair with Ulla. I'd known her before just as a friend, and then she came to visit me one day with 2 of her 3 children, and we sort of started getting a love affair going.
So how were you making a few quid?
Well, once again, I was depending on because it was Christmas time. It was Christmas Eve, in fact, and I was very, very hard up, and I was wondering where I was going to get some money from to maybe buy a present for Mike and pay my bill around the corner, because I was having everything on tally. And then a TV crew from Argentina arrived and wanted to do an interview with me. So for the first time, I thought, well, I'm going to ask them to pay me for an interview, and I said, look, I'll let you do an interview, but I'm going to charge you $200. And so they agreed, and there it was. I was with a couple of $100 in my pocket for Christmas. In those days, like 20 odd years ago, $200 was like probably about $600 today.
So is that when you realise that, as it were, the Ronnie Biggs entertainment machine could get switched on?
Well, it sort of inspired me to start charging and to make because they agreed so readily to $200. I thought, well, possibly, they would have said yes to $2,000. So what I did, because very, very soon after that, there was a team of Japanese people arrived. They got my address somehow, and they turned up in Sepetiba. A very, very short interview, and I charged them $1,000. And then from Germany, almost within like a matter of weeks afterwards, people came from Germany to do an interview. Once again, I charged $1,000 and then got a $1,000 bonus when the interview was used in a special program. I was told by the lady who did the interview that if it was accepted by her chief as a monthly special for their program, it's called VIPs, if they chose it as a special, then I would get a $1,000 bonus, and that's exactly what did happen. So from then on, I was charging sort of higher prices, and I was improving my situation. I was able to afford a maid to take care of Mike, like especially when because I had to travel to Rio twice a week to sign in at the federal police station. So with a maid, I could leave Mike with her, and because before I had the maid, I used to have to sort of come up to Rio with Mike as well, which wasn't so bad, of course. I mean, I didn't mind that too much, but it was more convenient for me to stay overnight in Rio, because by this time I had developed an affair with Ula, and I could sort of leave the maid at home overnight with Mike, and I could stay in Rio overnight and return the following day.
So with that level of income, what sort of quality of life is possible?
Well, like I say, it's I paid all my bills and got squared away with the debt I had round the shop round the corner, and bought myself some new clothes, and I was able to pay a maid. It wasn't very much. I was only sort of giving her a minimum salary, which was probably about $55, $60 at the time. But of course, my pattern of life improved considerably once there's a bit of cash coming in.
What was the best period with regard to financial success?
Well, it was very, very soon after I started doing these like flurry of interviews. Then the Australians came in, and they wanted to do something much bigger, and there was a $7,000 payoff on that one. It was like over best part of a week that they interviewed me, and it was like the secrets of Ronnie Biggs, because there were no secrets that had already been told. But that was sort of when things started getting better, because it sort of didn't stop then. And then when it did stop, I realised that I was down in Sepetiba, like 60 miles out of Rio. I had no telephone down there, and I figured that if I was living in Rio, it would be much easier for people to contact me, and I could sort of carry on sort of giving interviews, entertaining tourists, or whatever the case. And it wasn't until I made the decision, or the decision was made for me, after the first kidnap attempt in 1979, when John Miller and his pals tried to grab me in Sepetiba. I was living in Sepetiba when they tried to grab me, and then Ula, when I came up to Rio and saw Ula, she said, "Look, you're a sitting duck down there in Sepetiba. People can." This was soon after the kidnappers had been sort of told to leave Rio. She said, "You're sitting duck down here. I think it'd be best if you come up here and stay with me." And that's when I came up with Mike. I closed the house down in Sepetiba and moved officially up here, and the apartment above this one did belong to Ula. And we lived together here for maybe half a year. And then I found a different place. I found that my son and her young children were squabbling a lot, and there was some friction going on between Ula and I. So I made a decision that I would find a different place, but I was going to live in Rio anyway, and that began a series of different addresses, all depending on what my financial situation was. Sometimes I'd even go to a place that belonged to friends. They would be travelling to America or Germany or whatever the case, and I was able to use their apartment while they were away. So it really was an up and down existence. One time I'd be flush, and another time I'd be getting the light cut off and things like that.
What about the period with the Sex Pistols you managed? Now, obviously, in that period, you made records, and there were a great rock and roll swindle film. I believe there's a bit of you in that, and so on and so forth. What about all the money from that particular enterprise?
Well, it wasn't such a lot of money because for getting involved in the film, I was paid $2,000, and for my work with the Sex Pistols on the production of the not the Great Rock and Roll Swindle, but the No One Is Innocent record, I got $1,000 when I signed that contract. I understand that the record sold more than 7 million copies, and I think Mr. McLaren or Virgin Records or whoever, whatever, somebody somewhere owes me quite a lot of cash on the strength of royalties, which I never did receive, of course.
That happened very often, in that you were promised something that never materialised.
Not to that extent. I mean, I've been sort of tricked like more than once. I'm referring now to the Daily Express when they sort of did the villainy on me. In as much as I'd sort of did a deal with their crime reporter for £35,000 and didn't see any of that, but did see Mr. Slipper come crashing into Rio.
So presumably there was nothing signed on that occasion. It was my word is my bond, which didn't turn out to be.
That's right. I just figured I'd shaken hands with Mackenzie, and I thought we had a deal, and it's a pity that it didn't happen, really, you know, because it might have resolved a lot of things.
And have you spoken to him since to see what his feelings were, or whether he went back to London and his bosses wouldn't let him have the money or whatever?
Well, Mackenzie stayed on after the drama of me going away to Brasilia for 90 days. The Express wanted sort of more mileage from me when I was released finally, 90 days after my arrest. And they'd hired an apartment, or booked an apartment in Copacabana for Raimundo and I to live there for the time being, you know, while I was giving the rest of the story and while things were happening. And Mackenzie fed me some money, but it wasn't very much. But I never heard any more from him from the time I moved to Sepetiba, which was when Mike was perhaps about 6 months old.
Was that the first time that you'd met Jack Slipper, when he came over as a result of all that?
Well, apparently Jack Slipper was involved in the train robbery proceedings. He was, I think, a detective sergeant at the time, and he was involved in searching my house in 1963. But I can't remember him. I was aware that there was a whole bunch of policemen searching the house, and I do know now that Jack Slipper was one of them. But I didn't know it at the time, of course. And then, you know, I found this out when he did come to Rio.
How much contact have you had with him over the years? Personal contact, I mean?
Only, I've had sort of conversations with him. I mean, he's even been in this house, and he came here with the Sunday Express some years ago. And the idea was that I was supposed to be ready to divulge the names of the 5 people in the train robbery who were never taken into custody. But of course that was quite out of the question. But the Express thought there was a story there and brought Mr. Slipper over, and we met and had a chat, and of course it came to nothing really of the story. There was no names given or whatever, anything like that.
And have you met him since then?
Since then, no, that was the last time I saw him. But I do know from newspaper accounts that you know, he has said certain things, and I think he indicated to the press that it would be a bit of a useless move for me to be returned to Great Britain.
What about the official situation with regard to the British Embassy or Consul over here? Do they ever give you any indication of what their personal feelings are, or the official line is, or how it may or may not differ from the line that we hear in British newspapers or on the television?
Well, it did me a favour actually, because there was a time when the attitude with the British consulate here was that they, on no account should they sort of have anything to do with me, and they should vacate any area where I might arrive in. And this was always good, because there was a good restaurant here run by 2 English people. It was very popular with the English crowd in this country, or in Rio, and I used to go there quite frequently, And any time that, because it was always sort of pretty full, as it was so popular. And if I went there and there'd be a bunch of people from the British consulate, then they would pay up their bill and they would all go, and I would automatically sort of step in the table onto the have the table with my group of people. So it sort of served me well. But I don't think that's the attitude now. In fact, there was a vice consul here, and he and I went out and had a few drinks around here in Santa Teresa. And there was a very affable fellow, and you know, we meet occasionally here and there. And I don't think there's any sort of serious attitude with regard to avoiding my company now by those people. All right, well here the floats are. They're all ready to sort of go on the parade. Won't be about until another 10 hours from now. But of course they're all in line already, so they just come on up and go into the parade ground. And this of course obviously is the old train of the robbery in 1963, but it wasn't this colour. The colour was like a British racing green as far as I remember. But it's a fairly good mock-up. But as I also remember, there was no word Biggs on the front of it. But anyway, let's look at the size of it. I think it's a very, very good construction. I mean, the bursting through the headlines in this fashion, I think it's quite a novel idea. And but what I don't like about the whole plan of this particular school is the fact. Muito obrigado. Carnival, right. Some phony money. This is what they will be throwing this money to the crowds as the floats go down through. They'll be throwing the phony money to the crowd. Now, as I was saying, what I've got really against this whole theme of this particular summer school is a criticism of crime and corruption. And I was invited to actually be on this float as it went down the Avenida, but I refused because, as it's a criticism of crime, I would be putting myself on a kind of a pillory, ready to be criticised by the public at the same time. Now, I've had my share of criticism, and it's never worried me too much, and it wouldn't worry too much about being criticised here in Brazil with regard to my involvement in the Great Train Robbery. But as this is something that is it's a party for the people of Rio principally, although there will be hundreds of thousands of people here, certainly many tourists from afar. But I wouldn't want, and I didn't want, my name to be associated with crime, because I've been out of crime for the past 30 odd years. And although the train robbery, the fact of the train robbery will continue, I don't want necessarily to continue associating my name with it, because I'm out of that field of life now. I'm no longer a crook or a criminal for that matter. And for that whole reason, I sort of declined the offer to parade with this particular school. If I'd been invited on a sort of more normal lines, in other words, invited as somebody just to participate, to dance down the Avenida, although I've got the old broken knee here, I would have sort of been happy to go along. But as I say, as it's a criticism of the train robbery and me in particular, I turn the offer down. But anyway, it's 10 quid for you for being here. Okay.
Okay, Ronnie. Ronnie, over the side.
Vai vencer?
Ô, amigo, tudo bem?
Vai ser campeão desse ano?
Com certeza.
Com certeza.
Isso aí. Tranquilo.
Ok. Quer dizer algumas coisas para nós? Em português, pode ser.
Não, o que tem que dizer é que o que a gente quer passar e que as pessoas
Fala.
entendam a nossa mensagem.
Feliz Carnaval.
Para você também.
Obrigado.
Tudo de bom.
Bom desfile para vocês.
Muito obrigado.
E sucesso. Okay, well, this particular float here is supposed to be blind justice. You see, like the hand is covering the eyes and the sword of wisdom. And of course, all these notes, so these are supposed to be hands clutching the notes. And inside these little boxes or these little hands, there will be girls holding onto these staffs, and they'll be sambling as the float comes down the parade. The notes is you can see the name Biggs on them, but what I didn't understand, I'd like to point out, is that here it says God saves the thief. Well, I tell you, I sure hope that's the truth, because if God saves the thief, this particular school offering this as a message that God saves the thief, I'm looking forward to salvation, I guess. Interesting just to see the rear of the train float, what they've got mocked up there by way of a back panel on it. They've got a mixture of the British flag, the French flag, and the English flag, all sort of broken up and made a collage. And there's even a Danish flag there, I see, at the back. But the art, as you see, the artwork is really beautifully done, and it's very clever. There's a whole lot of work. This has been going on now, the work on this, but these floats for the last 6 months at least. And well, it's just a wonderful production. I don't feel privileged or proud about the fact that they are showing this particular train, but one must admire the degree of artwork that they put out. It's just very impressive.
Documento quente, chegar roupa de soldado, ficar sem na mão.
Ronnie! Olha pra câmera aí. Oh, yeah! Valeu! Obrigado por acontecer isso.
Jamie!
É Ronnie Biggs.
He's giving me some time. He's giving me some of his funny money, and so I'm putting a few autographs on it for him. I'm going to make some booking for him.
Tá?
Muito obrigado.
Menos.
Obrigado, valeu.
Is that you at the front then?
It's supposed to be, I guess.
Carro do trem pagador. Para lembrar o assalto que deu fama a Ronnie Biggs. Em 63, Biggs e seus companheiros, entre aspas, levaram
2.600.000
libras no trem do correio inglês em Glasgow, na Escócia.
I was expected to do this, I guess.
Carlos Daniels fazendo o dublê de Ronald
You
Biggs.
got the bags of cash, look.
Lembrar que Biggs foi preso e condenado a 30 anos de cadeia, mas ele conseguiu fugir para Paris, fez uma plástica no rosto e veio parar no Brasil. Até hoje a lei tenta, mas não consegue agarrar esse famoso ladrão. As mãos ali no carro significam a justiça inglesa tentando agarrar um ladrão mais famoso do mundo, que acabou ficando famoso. Segundo o enredo,
What she's talking about is
casos que acontecem na política nacional.
the fact that I was condemned to 30 years and managed to get to Paris for plastic surgery, and then finally got to Brazil, where Brazilian justice has given me my liberty.
1 hora e 7 minutos, 67 minutos de desfile para a escola.
What, so she moaning about that? Or just making
No,
a statement of fact?
Just stating the fact, yeah.
E esta ala traz uma reivindicação. A reintegração do preso na sociedade, a dignidade.
It might be better if they'd allowed all the cons out to do this. All the prisons in Rio. Give them a break.
So do you feel like, well, how do you feel when you see like somebody's made a float all about it?
I don't know, I don't think it's...
Uma discussão polêmica.
It's a polemic theme, right? Because, like I say, it's a criticism of crime altogether, but at the same time, it's being presented in this sort of, I suppose you say, it's a joyful way, you know.
Os ladrões agora do colarinho branco estão nesta ala que Mauro Quintais organizou.
You must get a twinge of pride though when you see like your name on the front. I would.
I don't think so. I was a bit surprised they didn't do a better job on the train. I think it should have been the proper colour for a start. Mind you, to present the idea, it doesn't really matter what colour it is, does it?
So you reckon it's caused you more aggravation than pleasure then?
Neither one nor the other, Mike, to be honest.
Esse é o último
To be
carro
honest.
da Consular, e tem um nome bem sugestivo. Adivinha? Justiça. A concepção
Freudian
da
slip
natureza,
of breath.
no fundo do carro,
Speaking of breath.
representa Cristo de basta. Olha lá. Palavra basta em neon. Muito bonito esse carro. E ele conclui, chega de maracutaia, chega de trabalho.
Okay, these notes here that are in the hands.
Que todos se tenham as mãos numa corrente de paz, de amor, de respeito ao próximo.
On those notes, on the top, on a dollar note, it says "In God We Trust," I think,
Do último carro.
and on those notes, it says God saves the thief.
De trás do carro tem uma pizza mostrando que no Brasil tudo termina em pizza.
E a figura que representa a justiça.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the insight into Ronnie Biggs' life in Rio. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, please like, please push the bell, And of course, look at parts 1 and 2 from the links below. Thank you very much and hope to see you again. Bye.